The morning it all began, the air was heavy, not with storm clouds, but with arrogance. I had just moved my family into what was supposed to be a fresh start, a peaceful neighborhood tucked between pine trees and a shimmering lake, the kind of place realtors describe as serene, safe, and family-friendly. But peace didn't last long, because peace never lasts long when Karen lives across the street. She wasn't your average neighbor. She was the self-appointed queen of the HOA, the kind of woman who believed she had divine authority over every mailbox, fence, color, and child's laughter in the community. And unfortunately for me, my family was her next target. It started small. A letter about my kids' bicycles being left on the lawn. A warning about my wife's flower garden being non-compliant. Then came a fine for my porch lights being too warm in tone. I laughed at first, thought it was all harmless HOA nonsense. But then she crossed the line. One afternoon, as my 10-year-old daughter rode her pink bike down the street, Karen stopped her. Actually stopped a child in the middle of the road. She leaned down and said, in that icy voice only people who love control can master, "Your family isn't following the community's image. Maybe you should all consider living somewhere else." When my daughter came home in tears, something inside me broke. That evening, I walked across the street, calm but firm, and knocked on Karen's door. She opened it with that fake, polished smile. "Mr. Daniels," she said, "what can I do for you?" I looked her in the eyes. "You ever talk to my kid again like that? And I promise you, it'll be the last time you hold an HOA meeting." Her smile faltered. Then came the venom. "Is that a threat?" "No," I said. "It's a promise." She slammed the door in my face. And that's when the real war began. The next week, I started receiving violation notices daily. Grass length exceeds HOA standards. Unauthorized vehicle in driveway. Improper use of property, children playing outdoors after 7 p.m. They fined me for living, for existing. Then one morning, I received a certified letter. Notice of HOA hearing membership suspension. It said my repeated violations and aggressive behavior toward the HOA board had led them to consider revoking my membership privileges, meaning I could no longer use the community facilities pool or even attend events. In other words, they wanted to ban my family from the neighborhood. But what they didn't know was that they picked the wrong family. I wasn't just some quiet dad with a mortgage and a lawnmower. I was a former federal investigator who had spent a decade exposing corruption, the kind of man who reads every line of every rulebook. And that night, I read the entire HOA charter. I found 8 illegal clauses in their bylaws and 4 violations of state housing codes. If they wanted war, I'd bring the law. At the hearing, they sat there, 5 of them with Karen at the center, dressed like a judge in pearls. She started reading her speech about community harmony and standards of behavior. Upwaited.com. Silent. Then I said, "Karen, before you go further, I'd like to read a few documents into record." I pulled out a thick folder and laid it on the table. "Here's a list of every time the HOA has violated its own charter, every instance of harassment toward my family, and oh yes, a few statements from neighbors you've bullied too." Her face turned pale, because she knew what was coming next. "I've also filed a complaint with the State Department of Consumer Affairs," I added, "and an open records request on the HOA's finances." That's when the other board members started shifting nervously in their seats. The truth was simple. Karen had been misusing HOA funds for years. Lavish dinners for board meetings, personal landscaping paid with community money, even a renovation of her backyard pool, disguised as a community improvement. I'd found everything: receipts, emails, signatures. Her empire was built on lies, and I had the receipts to burn it down. Within 2 weeks, the investigation began. Neighbors who once feared her started speaking up. Anonymous letters turned into signed affidavits. And local news started sniffing around. Karen tried to spin it, of course. She stood at the next HOA meeting and said, "This man is trying to destroy our community." But by then, her words didn't hold weight anymore, because everyone knew the only thing Karen was destroying was herself. The final straw came when the state auditor uncovered the truth. Over $120,000 in misappropriated HOA funds. Karen was forced to resign, publicly humiliated, and slapped with a criminal investigation. The same woman who once tried to ban my family was now banned from holding any HOA position in the state. And the day she moved out, the entire neighborhood stood outside, watching. No one said a word. But the silence was loud, louder than any victory speech. My daughter stood next to me, holding my hand, and said quietly, "Dad, karma got her." I smiled. "Yeah, kiddo, karma always does." That night, as the moon rose over our quiet, peaceful street, I sat on my porch, finally free from the chaos. The same porch that once felt like a battlefield now felt like home again. I didn't just win against Karen. I restored peace, not just for my family, but for everyone who'd been afraid to speak up. Because sometimes, karma doesn't need help, it just needs truth. And when truth finally shows up, even the loudest Karen falls silent.